Okay, so joining us backstage at the after party is Jeanolee Sidbury. And one of the questions I asked is, Ronell, did he survive or has he passed away? And you said what?
He passed away a week from that initial visit. He did not make it. I was worried about him getting the proper care, of course, being in jail as well, right? And so we got the calls throughout the week. I did that he wasn't going to make it, but I didn't tell my daughter. And this is the first time I omitted the truth from her, and it really hurt me because I wanted to just help her make it through the week and at work and everything until we went back the next week. And we didn't take my granddaughter the next week. I said, she met him. We're just going to go alone. I knew what was going on. Um, and I had made several calls to try to get him an early release, even if it was just moving from one side of the hospital and not being cuffed to the bed to another side because only two can go up at a time. And when we left that first visit, she had him pinky promise that he would hold on until we came back the next week. And of course, he did. And with me getting those calls, I knew he wasn't okay. And but I wasn't expecting what we saw when we got there. So they said, "Hurry up and get here." You know, he's not gonna make it. And when we got there that Friday, I called his best friend from back then too, my daughter's godfather. They were best friends when we first met, when we were teenagers, and he met me there, him and his sister, and we chit chatted for a minute, but it was very brief. And my daughter and I had to hurry up and get upstairs because his best friend said he was flatlining when we were up there. Hurry up and get up there. And so when we got up there, um, my daughter walked in and I was right behind her, and I had to really hold myself up so I could hold her because she kind of fell back into my arms because he literally looked 90 pounds lighter and 90 years older. I was not prepared for what I had saw, and this was just within a week.
Right.
And that was a lot. It was my daughter was freaking out, and I had to. And the nurse, was like, well, at least he held on and kept his promise because she was in the room when he pinky promised the week prior. And I saw that the monitor, he had a pulse for a quick minute or so, and then he flatlined and he was gone. And it really felt like he held on for my daughter until he heard her voice. So, but to hear her shout out for him and everything, it was hard. I had to really talk her into,
Wow.
because the nurse was bawling herself, and she went to hug my daughter, and I backed away and let her embrace my daughter, just so I could have a moment, and I just needed a minute, and yeah,
Do you ever think whether he really did do that to your
of
grandma?
course, of course, and that's the problem. That's the problem. It's so much where I'm unsure. We still don't have answers, but I replay everything in my head.
Because what evidence did they ultimately have that it was him?
Well, that's the thing. There was a lot of evidence against him. They had his bloody clothes.
Oh, okay.
They had a hammer that had his fingerprints on it, a bloody hammer. Um, my grandmother was stabbed multiple times. Her throat was cut,
Hmm.
and she was hit over the head with this hammer several times. And I hate to be so graphic about it, but that's what it was. And so there was a lot because he had a public defender. Here, this black man, young man, had a public defender. Here's all these things that happened that we couldn't explain. He couldn't explain. You're in her car and she's dead. You know, um, he helped her do things around her house, so his fingerprints would be on a hammer. But then they said, well, they can see blood patterns, and if it was fingerprints of blood or blood running through fingerprints, there was so much to that.
Mm.
And so, and then I'm listening to him, and I had to really focus on the evidence. And, but my heart has, after this, it was on the fence because looking him in his face, and he looked at me, and that's what really got me when he first looked at me when my daughter left the room, because she climbed in the bed with him and stayed there for hours with him. But then when my grandbaby and I came from lunch and she took my grandbaby and I had a moment with him, he looked me in my eyes and we had a conversation with our eyes. And when he looked me in my eyes, he said to me without saying to me, I did not do this shit. Honestly, that's what I heard. I didn't do it. And with me as a grown woman now, seeing him and looking into his eyes, I just wanted to lay out on the floor and just cry and just mope, because I had my doubts, and it hurt to think that he did all this time and didn't do it. He didn't have any support. We were his family. He had family members, and I think his own mom was jealous. My grandmother took him and bought him school clothes with me, and he was more with us. And his mother, honestly wasn't that well off and living in poverty, and she had lost him. And we met in high school, he was living with his adoptive mom, so he was adopted. And so there's a lot to his story as well. And so it's just really sad. And what I felt in that moment was like, oh my God, he did not do this. Because I just felt it through my body and in his eyes. And I said to him right now, if you did it, I forgive you. And if you didn't do it, I believe you. But just know that you're going to be free now, no matter what. Because I knew from what the doctors were telling me that it wasn't looking good, but I was hopeful, of course. But I just wanted him to hear that from me.
And how old was he when he passed?
He was, I'm 50 now. I was 45, so he was 46.
Wow. So his life was, if he, like you said, if he did this, he paid the price significantly through his whole rest of his life. And if he didn't do it, he paid the price as if he did it. It's such a bizarre situation.
That's right.
And how did your family feel? Did your family feel like he did it?
No. My Grandpa Sidbury, he said back then, that boy didn't do that. That boy didn't do that. And my grandfather's gone now, but that stayed with me. Kids at school were gossiping, and a lot of his friends were like, you can't believe he did that. Can you, Jeanette? But I just could not be 100%, just wide open to him, not knowing, and he couldn't explain things. Why were you driving her car? He couldn't explain. He wasn't explaining himself. And even from being a teenager to a man, when we had the conversation, he was saying the same thing. He wasn't explaining himself. I can understand you're scared, you're young. I get that part. But as we grew older and had conversations, he said the same exact thing. And I was asking him questions now, being smarter and wiser, and he couldn't explain himself. And it's really, really crazy. But yeah, he did his time, and all I really wanted was for him to get out one day and have the relationship with my daughter that she always wanted. But I told her, that was a long time ago, and I knew him then, but I don't know him, so you don't know him. That's your dad, but just be careful and please keep me in the loop of what's going on, because there's just too many things that weren't answered, so many things that went unanswered.
But he never got out. He never came home from jail.
Right. He got out. but it wasn't the way we all expected.
Right. Well, he got out. He got out and
Yeah,
went
I
to.
know what you meant, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
that's amazing. No, I was just saying if he did ever get to come out of the prison system and spend that time with your daughter, yeah, we all gonna get out of this thing called Earth, and we're gonna go to our heavenly home. So ultimately, at the end of the day, he got out and he's where God has for him to be in this afterlife. And I just believe that none of us know when people repent of their sins and in their moments with God. So I just believe that God would automatically be like, come on in, because you don't know in the midnight hour what a person has gone through to be able
yeah,
to offer and ask for salvation. So I pray that Ronell did that as well, And I
yeah,
definitely am not one to judge one way or the other.
right. Neither am I. And I reached out to his public defender for help. That was his public defender back then because I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And when I called him and told him who I was, he said, "Oh my God." He was still in practice and everything. And I told him what was going on with Ronell and what should I do. And he was like, "I'm sorry, I can't really be much help to you, but," and that was fine. But what really got me was he said, "Man, I'm so sorry to hear that. I've always had my doubts." And I said, "You've always had your doubts?" And then I kind of regretted calling because it made me feel like crap.
Yeah, it's like what?
Now knowing what I know now, back then I didn't know, but what it means to have sometimes there's public defenders that will act as if they have billion-dollar practices and their heart is in helping really truly. So I have nothing against them, but we also know that when you don't have paid representation sometimes and you're an African American young man, how you can slip through the cracks as well. And your family doesn't have money, we know that story as well. So that was his story. And when I came home from the hospital, my mom had just gotten her leg amputated and was living with us. And she had the letter in her hand and she just kept saying, "I'm so, so sorry." And I was on my knees and I said, "Mom, I'm so upset at us because we left him here to rot." And I know not to blame myself. I never have.
Right.
However, we were really his only chance looking back. And we were the family that was a little more solid than his, had the money to help. And we got sidetracked with everything that was going on. And then, of course, we weren't sure. And then my mother, she got on crack, started smoking crack, started selling crack, and she went left. And I was just really, I became my mom's mom. And we weren't focused, right, at all. But I do wish we had been a little more to support him more if that's what could have helped really get to the bottom of it and get the truth out. There were days I couldn't they wouldn't allow me in trial. And so there was things I didn't hear. But then him and I, of course, later had the conversation and he told me. And it was a lot, with his family. He blamed it on a cousin of his. It's a lot.
So he did say that who he said did it.
Yes, he said, "I feel he did it because he's saying I did it." And they were.
Well, did that cousin's name start with the P?
Yes. Yes.
I remember you saying that in the episode. That's what.
Yes. And it's in the book as well. Yes.
Yeah.
And so.
Wow.
But they were together. They were together at the window, poking me with the stick. And Ronell, I woke up and he wasn't there. So where did you go all night? And they told us the timeline of when my grandmother's life was taken. You went to sleep with me, but when I woke up, you weren't there.
Oh man. So do you think was Ronell into drugs or anything, or
No,
smoking or
he
anything?
smoked marijuana, and I used to get on him about stop smoking that stuff with your friends.
Yeah, I know this would be like something that will forever be in your mind. I know that because you just don't know.
Right. I know not to beat myself up about it, but I do think of him. I think of my grandmother. I'm at peace with it. If God does not want me to have, God doesn't want me to have all the answers for a reason. And you know, it's so funny, Miss Kim, because I ordered a shirt from a company, and I don't even know what the heck the shirt. I finally got the right shirt. Here's the story behind this. I ordered this shirt, and then when the shirt came, and this was just during COVID after my sister, and I was really feeling the impact because Ronell dying like this took me back to when this all happened in '87.
Right.
30 years ago. And then when my sister was murdered, it opened up old wounds with my father. And I was like, I have to write this book. I started writing the book 10 years ago and put it down because I got to a part that was painful.
Because that's a lot of murder.
When I opened the door and saw my grandmother, and I could not type that out, it was hard. So when all that happened, especially with that was the tip of the iceberg with my sister, I said, I've got to write this book. Now I understand why I didn't do it then. There was so much more to add to it. I didn't expect Ronell to go or her or even find her when I first started writing the book. Right? But what I was going to say is I ordered a shirt. And when the shirt came, it was not the same shirt that I ordered. I opened the shirt and it said, "There will be answers, let it be." And I still have that shirt and I kept it. And that company sent me the right shirt later. They let me have it, but what I was going through at that moment, that had just happened with my sister. And I had convinced myself, you're going to write this book. And I was thinking about everything and with Ronell and then her. And then the shirt comes. And so I always pay attention to little signs.
Yeah.
Right. And be fully present in what's happening because you won't get it. You'll miss it. And I just want to get it right.
That's right.
And that shirt, yeah. So there's some answers I have, some I'm still waiting on.
And they will be there at some point. It's just a matter of time. So you have my deepest condolences for all of the tragic loss that you've experienced. And I'm just so grateful that God would give you enough strength to be able to share your story in writing and ultimately on the big screen when that happens too. So thank you for staying for the after party. And I'm saying this is an after party clip, but I don't know if I'm going to play this during the holidays or if I'm going to play this just as an after party clip. But this is even more information than what was shared during our interview. And do you have any closing comment?
I would just say, in life, when you go through things, work the hand that you were dealt. Work that damn hand. I'm sorry to just, excuse me, but I just had to say that, work it. I worked the hand I was dealt. I used to watch my mother and friends, neighbors play spades, and they would put baby powder on the table so the cards can slide. They would take cards and slap them on their forehead, And sometimes they would be bluffing and sometimes they weren't. But if you don't have a full hand of spades, it's okay, right? I used to run around and look at everybody's hand. I knew how to play it. My mother would be like, "Don't say nothing.
Don't you dare reveal what's in my hand."
Real spades players take it seriously. But that taught me something because, I knew when they didn't really have a handful of spades and when they would slap that card and it would really stick to their forehead. But we have to do the devil that way, to punk him out. When he tries to count you out, show him that he can't count. And slap that card on your forehead and act as if you have a spade and a handful and that you got this thing called life, you got it. And you're not going to let, anyone deter you and get you sidetracked or, you're not going to just blame everyone and complain about everything about what you didn't have from your parents, what have you. There comes a certain point when we just know better. You know right from wrong, right? You can't keep blaming, what happened in your past, on your family or your parents or whoever did it to you. And quite frankly, people most people don't give a darn. And they don't want to hear that complaining anyway. Everyone has their own story and their own thing they're going through. People are really hurting, right? So you just have to really work the hand that you were dealt.
I love it. I love that feedback. Well, thank you so much. I had no idea that this, I'm glad I pulled my phone out. So for you all that are watching, I'm actually recording from my phone onto her being backstage after our actual interview. And this pretty much turned into an entirely additional interview that some kind of way I'm going to figure out how to share it with people. But all right, thank you so much. And let me put up here again how people can stay connected with you if I'm not shaking this phone over here too much. Let's see. People can stay connected with you right here. How can they stay connected with you?
Yes, so I would love for you all to follow me. My personal page is Jeanolee I Am on Instagram. And then, of course, the book is the title, God Likes the Sound of Good Times, at God Likes the Sound of Good Times, and the brand at Class, and then the word and spelled out, at Class and Polish on all platforms. And
All right.
yeah, I love to just you follow the story and the journey.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, everybody. For the after party, or if you're watching it during the holidays, wherever you're seeing this, I hope that you have been extremely blessed like I've been just hearing this woman's heart, Jeanolee Sidbury. And if you missed the actual interview that we did, make sure you go and check it out on our YouTube channel, which is Kim Jacobs Show. You can go to our YouTube channel and catch the original airing of the first interview. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, Jeanolee.